start with some introductions. Why don't you go ahead, Lauren, say hi. Nice to see you.
Hey, nice to see you too. I've just got Ocean in the background, was doing some vacuuming, so I didn't want to come off mute, but she's just stopped.
Okay,
She was
good.
playing with the vacuum cleaner.
Well, that's always fun.
Yeah, so I've really felt called to join today, so I'm hoping that it all goes well with her, but if I have to pop off, I will.
Feel free to mute yourself whenever needed, and just introduce yourself to everybody so that everybody knows who you are and where you're joining us from.
Okay, I'm Lauren and I'm from New Zealand. Um, and yeah, I'm moving house this weekend and really excited, and I've got a 3-year-old daughter.
Awesome. Thanks, Lauren. Jim, why don't you say hi
Hi
to
there.
everyone?
Hi, everybody. Great to see you. And I'm new to this group, and I live in California, and I'm really looking forward to all of this and getting to know you all.
Thanks, Jim. And Jim's going to be coming to Kauai in October and November for our retreat. So this is the first time we've met. We've emailed a few times, and yeah, glad you're going to be joining us there as well.
Thank you.
Thanks. Alicia.
Hi, I'm Alicia. Welcome, Jim. We're glad to have you. I've been working with Scott for a year and a half now, I think. I started out with a retreat as well, just like Jim's going in October. And I'm still just doing the stuff, doing the work.
Great. Thanks for joining us, Alicia.
And
Yes.
where do you live, Alicia?
I'm sorry, I'm in Florida.
Florida. Great.
Yes.
Okay. And Sherry is going to be joining us in about 30 minutes. She's logged on, but she's not going to be able to say hi. She just messaged. And so Christiane.
Hi, my name is Christiane. I'm from Toronto, so I'm in Toronto. And finally, it's sunny today. And I just saw the cutest thing. Actually, I was at the park and I came back on my bike and I'm in this battle with the squirrels and I'm trying to love the squirrels. And they're just eating my bike seat. Like they chewed a peach-sized chunk out of my bike seat. Like it's disgusting. And they just keep eating it. And anyway, so I have this issue with the squirrels, but I made a cool bike seat cover and now they're working on chewing my handlebars. Anyway, I came back from the park and I saw this little girl. She was maybe 4 or 5, and she was just giving this tree a huge hug, like a massive old growth tree. And she was just like, you could tell her mom was kind of annoyed, like, let's get out of here, but was still letting her do it. It was just so cute. So yeah, made me happy.
Oh,
Cute.
that's really beautiful.
It was so cute. Yeah.
Thanks, Christiane.
Mhm.
That's really beautiful. Just
Yeah.
that connection is so natural.
Yeah. Yeah.
That connection is so natural for us as humans to want to connect in that way. And then unfortunately, sometimes society hurries us out of that and prevents us from really doing that. So I'm glad that even if mom was perhaps a little bit annoyed, she was able to hold her patience there and let her daughter connect with the tree, because those are such important times, right? Those are the things that people will actually remember as adults, right? That's the kind of thing where I'll remember, a little kid will imprint that and then remember as an adult that, oh man, I remember that time I was hugging the tree and mom or dad pulled me away from that tree. And, so as a parent, giving the space for our children, or as a teacher, or caretaker, giving space for our children to really be in that timeless state that is so natural for them. Of course, we do have life responsibilities. We have to get them to go places. But just the timelessness. The other day we were down at the beach here, and my daughter, who's now 14, was gathering some plant bark to make a lei, a special kind of lei. And she knew where to get it. I let her go by herself to get it. And then about an hour and a half later, I'm like, where is she? And because she's not at the trees, I know where specifically which trees she was gathering them from. There's one stand of downed how bark and downed how, and that's where you pull the bark from to make the raffia. And then I'm like, couldn't find her. And then she's just sitting there under a native plant in the shade, under the beech heliotrope in the shade, and like peeling it down and processing the how bark, turning it into raffia, just at peace. Like an hour and a half went by. I'm like, hey, did you know that we're down on the other beach right now? We've been looking for you. She's like, what? It's only been like 20 minutes. And I'm like, no, it's been an hour and a half. So it's that timelessness, which of course, as adults, we were like, hey, where'd you go? But as children, it's really nice to give them the space to be in that. So, yeah, thanks for sharing that with us. Lindsay. Hi, Lindsay.
Hello. How are you?
Nice to
Been a
see
while.
you. Yeah, it has been a minute.
I know. I've been meaning to email you. I have done some work on my ancestry course, which has been all long overdue, but I have got some emails to send you.
Please do. We actually just had somebody here from Karratha.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's a long flight. She took 4 planes to fly out here. And so I
Oh,
was
right.
thinking about you. I'm like, oh, wow, that's kind of Lindsay's neighborhood. Well, 500
Yeah, it's still a
kilometers.
long way from Perth, though, right?
Yeah, she had to fly through Perth. But anyway, just
Uh,
introduce yourself to everybody, Lindsay, and I'll be happy to connect with you by email as well.
Yes. Yeah, hi, I'm Lindsay. I've done a few courses with Scott and yeah, don't know what to say really. It's been a long time since I've been on one of these calls, but I'm feeling the need to come back and connect with you. And yeah, I've done all of Scott's like courses. I've just almost finished his ancestry healing course, and yeah. Sorry, I'm bumbling. It's like 5 o'clock in the morning here. I'm not thinking.
You're joining us from Perth. So just so everybody knows where you're from.
Yeah, okay, that's it.
Well, thanks for getting up early. It's really good to see you.
No, no problem. No problem.
Good morning.
Yeah.
Thanks. Hi, Karina. Come on, say hello.
Yeah, hello.
Hi.
Hello, everybody. Yeah, it finally worked. Was a bit technical this day. Yeah, I'm Corinne. I'm in Canary Islands, and yeah, I'm trying to join regularly because it's very nice, these group journeys, and also yeah, doing it in a group is also sometimes different than doing it alone. So yeah.
Thanks.
Hello.
Thanks, and really good to see you. And thanks for staying up late and joining us.
No
we
worries.
have people getting up early. We have people joining late in the day, and people in the middle of the day. Really appreciate this. It's wonderful to me to have people from all over the planet, because that's been my vision with this, is to reweave the web of life together in a way where we are shifting our collective consciousness as humans to be caretakers and custodians and guardians and healers of the web of life. Because that's really what our role is and always has been. And somehow or other, we got off track with certain mythologies, agreements that we made of scarcity, that came into human consciousness and came in through many levels. It wasn't just through one culture or one religion, but many different ways where it's been viewed, instead of humanity as caretakers, custodians and guardians, which is what most native and indigenous cultures are. It was, man's been outcast from a garden. Man has to struggle. Man's not worthy of love from God. Things like that. And that has really separated us as humans from our environment and from nature, from being truly and authentically connected. Right? So a lot of people, if you go out in nature, and you really go out in nature where there's no cars, there's no phones, there's not even a trail, and you just sit there for, even if it's just for part of a day, knowing that you're going to walk back, people will start to feel quite uncomfortable sometimes, just being isolated like that. And that's not a natural That's not a natural or a normal way of being, right? What's natural and normal is that we will feel connected and we'll feel safe and nurtured. Of course, if conditions are bad and it's big storms, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking just about a regular day. But a lot of people feel nervous. They feel nervous about just being in the environment of Mother Earth, forgetting the fact that everything that we have that has been provided for us has come directly from Mother Earth. And so this is a huge shift in consciousness. It is why I do this work, to help shift consciousness back in that direction, that our job is here to be able to be caretakers, to be able to be nurturing the web of life, to stand in that position. Okay, so that's really important. And Karina, thank you for sharing also about the working in the group together. I know that you've been doing a lot of work yourself on these types of journeys in the Canary Islands with some of the environmental issues there. And I just want to acknowledge that and say how important that is. A lot of times, we might do something and we might not have other people there with us. We might not have a lot of acknowledgement for that, but it's still making a difference. It's not only healing us in terms of the insights and healing that we're receiving, but it's also making a difference in terms of what we're modeling and what we're being able to shift within our relationship with the web of life. Sometimes we don't know exactly how those ripples are going to spread out, right? So we do a journey on our own about something, and then we have an insight, we feel more clear, we have more healing around something, and then we're just having a casual conversation with someone over dinner or in a cafe, and then something we said that was sparked by that journey sparks them, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that ripple keeps moving outwards in a positive way. So it's important to acknowledge that that's something that you are doing, and that even if you're not necessarily getting that immediate feedback, it is making a difference down the line. And what's really confirming of that for me personally has been, well, actually, Alicia is one of these people who told me, I've been watching your Web of Life videos for a year and a half? It was a while. It was like all through COVID. I had no idea. She was never able to be on any of the live calls because of her work commitments. And then one day she, contacts me and says, hey, I've been watching these calls. I've been following them every day for, or when they come out for over a year through the whole COVID. I just haven't been able to participate live because of my other work commitments. And that was so affirming to me, because, we're a small group. We've got 8 people here on the call today. And then I realized, oh yeah, there's like 100, 200, 300 people watching the video afterwards. They might not be emailing me, they might not be contacting me, but the ripples are spreading out. And even if they're not watching the video, someone else who watched the video or participated on the call is gaining a direct insight about our relationship with the web of life and passing that on. So the ripples keep spreading outwards. And I just want to share how important that is for everybody to mind that what we do when we touch the web in one strand, it reverberates throughout the entire web of life. And even if we're not sure in that moment that it's reverberating, even if we don't have that confirmation coming back to us, it is happening. We just need to have our faith in that and know that that confirmation will come at a later time. So today, what I want to focus on in the journey today is our impact on wildlife as humans. We were recently in Australia, we were recently in Tasmania, and maybe a lot of people on the call haven't been to Tasmania, but if you have been to Tasmania, you will know that if you drive around, there is a lot of injured and killed animals on the roadside. Kangaroos, wallabies, Tasmanian devils, wombats, walls. I mean, you name it. There are so many animals that are out because Tasmania has a lot of wilderness area, and it's quite rural. And so we didn't even drive in the evenings. We wanted to make sure that we were back home at a certain hour or leaving later than that. We didn't want to, if we were driving at night, and there was a couple of times when we were driving half the speed we would during the day. And, you know, you would see so many animals. One night we were out later at a beach at sunset, and we passed probably about 70 or 80 wallabies in a 5-mile drive. Individuals, you know, that's a lot, not to mention the patty melons and the wombats and all the other little crawlers and the possums and the smaller animals that were out there. There's a lot, and that was like 5 miles, right? It took us more than 5 minutes because we were going really slowly. It took us about 20 minutes to drive home on those roads just to make sure. But, you know, it's so prevalent. So what is our impact? It made me really think, what is our impact on wildlife? And one of the things that was really poignant and really made a huge impression is another night we were coming back from looking at penguins up on the coast, and we were driving back to where we were staying, about half an hour drive away, and there was a wallaby that had just been hit, and so we had checked the pouch, and there was a baby in the pouch. And fortunately, the baby had died on impact, but my wife pulled the baby out to see if it was still alive. It wasn't. But we were talking to some of the wildlife conservation people over there, and they were like, yes, you know, many of us locals, if we see you know, a dead animal on the road, we're going to check the pouch, because it's all marsupials, right? Even wombats are marsupials. Tasmanian devils are marsupials. So they all have their babies in the pouch. And so there's times where you can, you know, we were on the phone as the lady was telling us how to check the pouch. And she said, look, even if it's like a tiny little joey, and sometimes they're like, you know, 2 inches tall and like, you know, the size of your fingers together. They're very tiny at a certain age. She said you could even wrap it up and just keep it warm, and it will survive for days until we can, you know, it will survive for days. And by that time, we'll be able to have someone there who knows how to take care of it and things like that. So what is our impact? It made such a huge impression to me about that. We don't tend to have that, you know, here on Kauai, where I live, there's not a lot of wildlife around. There's some pigs and there's some goats and there's some chickens, and then there's a lot of birds, but the birds fortunately don't get hit by cars. And so, you know, we tend to think of our impact as far as what are we doing and how we're caring for our, you know, what chemicals do we use or not use? You know, how do we build? Do we provide spaces for birds? Right? Things like that. So what impact do we make on the web of life through our actions? And, you know, could we even make wildlife corridors on highways so that the roads don't, you know, have to cross their migration or grazing areas, things like that. Another thing, I was having a conversation just this weekend. My daughter was at one of her friend's birthday parties, and the parents of her friend are both involved heavily in conservation and bird conservation here on the island. And we have a lot of endangered native birds, seabirds, water birds, and forest birds. And she was talking about a conference that she had just attended, in which she specializes in water birds. And she was talking, they had invited native peoples from up and down the west coast of the United States to come out to Hawaii and talked about certain species of endangered water birds here. And what they did on the first day was, with the Hawaiians, they went out into the taro loi, which are the taro fields. And taro is grown in water. So it's basically it's a pond that's flooded, and the taro is grown, or kalo is grown in the flooded ponds. And traditionally, the valleys were cultivated in a way throughout all of Hawaii where you had series of cascading ponds that would feed themselves one after another, right? And if you have taro ponds, you have ducks, right? If you have taro loi, you have water birds. And so the point they were making, and this is, you know, these are scientists, hundreds of scientists and native elders together, right? Talking about this, and they're just saying, look, we tend to think of, as scientists, conservation as keep people out. And they were saying, well, look, as native people, we say, no, we put people in. And we put people in to be able to create the land in a way that nurtures, right? As opposed to putting people in a different way. And so it was wonderful because I'd never met her friend's parents before. We had this wonderful conversation about all this. And I was sharing with her about, yes, it's about shifting the consciousness. And she really got that. She's a scientist, and she really got that about, yeah, it is about shifting the consciousness. So what is our impact on the wildlife? How can we, in our day-to-day actions, live in a way that nurtures wildlife and brings wildlife into our day-to-day life, right? How do we create spaces for that? And those of you who have been here to Kauai, to my place, Alicia and Karina, you know, in my backyard, how many birds are there. When I bought this place, it was just, you know, a suburban lot with red dirt and overgrown grass. There were no trees, there were no birds, there was nothing, right? And now it's becoming more of an ecosystem, right? It takes care of itself. There's birds building nests, there's cats that come to eat the baby birds. It's part of life, right? But there are more birds than there are cats, right? There's different types of insects for the birds. Everything is, and the different kind of plants that the birds eat. The bees come when the plants flower, right? So and the butterflies come, and the big Luna moths, and none of this was here when I bought the house. So we're creating environments. When we pile up our debris, it's like, oh, okay, if I pile my debris up there, maybe a chicken is going to nest in that, or maybe it's going to be the home for some other ground dwelling animal, right? So we can live in a way which everything that we create in a way that is helping us live in harmony with wildlife. And so that's my focus today, of bringing awareness to that. That's what I want to focus on today in our journey. And I just want to throw it open right now for any questions that anybody might have, any contributions, anything you want to share about that topic or anything else.
You know, quickly, I have something, and it's mainly for Christiane. Is that how you say your name? So I was in Europe recently, and we were in north of London in an estate, and there was 100 people in a conference. And at lunch in the dining room, everybody ran to the window, and they were all saying, "There it is, there it is. No, there it went. There, look, there it is." And I couldn't figure out what they were looking at. I thought it was some exotic animal. And so I got my way into the crowd, and they're all going, "No, it's under there. No, it's up there." And when I finally got to the window, it was a squirrel. So there you have it.
Probably not in as much abundance as they are in Toronto.
Apparently, no one had ever seen one.
Wow. Well, they can be in overabundance sometimes as well, especially if they're eating your bicycle seat.
Yeah.
That's great. Thanks, Jim, for sharing that. That's wonderful. And you know, and at the same time, it's beautiful too, because look at the appreciation they have for something that we take for granted.
I thought for sure it was a fox or a weasel, marten, they call them. I thought for sure it was something like that, but because I have probably 150 squirrels within 100 feet of where I'm sitting right now, so.
Right, and they're probably robbing your bird feeders.
They're like everything I can do to get them away from the house. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I remember when I lived in upstate New York, we used to put our bird feeders on a line and hang it out in the middle between two trees, and then put barriers around the line that the squirrels no way could get around. Well, of course they got around it. And you know, they were I'm like, how did you guys get over that? It's like a big circle of plastic around a line, and you jumped over that and landed on a tiny, thin little line to get to the seed. It's amazing. There's a reason why they're so good at survival. And they're also quite good at squirrel stashing. So apparently what I've read about squirrels is that they will lose up to 80% of the food that they stash for the wintertime. And so what they're doing in the web of life is they're planting seeds.
Yeah. Oh.
And so they're gathering acorns and they're planting them for the oak trees so that the oak forests get bigger. Or beech nuts or hickory nuts or whatever nuts are in your area that they like to eat. And they will, you know, because they lose so much of what they stash, they end up being basically gardeners that are replanting and planting the forest over and over and over again. That's one of their roles. And in that house I used to live in upstate New York, where we had to try and isolate our bird feeder from the squirrels. We had 2 apple trees right next to each other. And I made a deal with the squirrels, and they kept this deal. It was amazing. I told them they could have 1 tree. And they did. They picked the front tree clean. Not one apple made it from green to red. By the time the apples were, you know, about the size of a tennis ball or a little smaller, like a racquetball, and they were green, squirrels hit that tree. Before it even got to September, that tree was done. The other tree, they left it. And we had thousands of apples off that tree. You know, hundreds or thousands of apples. They never touched that tree. And the funny thing, they were the exact same kind of tree. They were the same old school apple. It was called a wine sap apple. So I don't know. They just didn't, it wasn't a preference for the species or anything. It was just, I made a deal with them and I said I'd share, and they kept their end of the bargain and I kept my end of the bargain. I didn't try to chase them off the tree. I don't think I could have anyway, but yeah. So obviously squirrels coming up quite a lot today. It's great.
I was going to share something. It's so bizarre, and don't judge me because we haven't mowed in 3 weeks, but I live in suburbia, but I'm between a pond and the woods. And we have like Fern Gully, we call it, where there's a bunch of rabbits. We have squirrels, we have a badger, we have deer, we have a bunch of stuff, snakes, all sorts of stuff. And they're putting in IQ fiber for internet, I guess. So we just couldn't mow. They have all these flags everywhere. And yesterday we found, from our little ecosystem, there's a tomato plant growing in the middle of my backyard. And we're like, that is not a tomato, it's a tomato plant. So somebody ate, you know, because we do put our, you know, like tomato stuff and carrot stuff out for the, you know, for the animals. And I don't know, but somebody must have pooped out a tomato seed. And because we didn't mow for 3 weeks, it started to grow. So my husband dug it up, and we're going to see what happens with it.
There you go. Replant it. They're doing that for you. And that's part of the web of life. I mean, that's beautiful, right? That's how it's
never had that happen before. It was so crazy.
You probably haven't been not mowing for 3 weeks before.
No, we have to, because, you know, homeowners. But because of all of this, everything's been a little crazy. So all of a sudden we were like, no way. No, it's definitely a tomato plant.
And now you'll have like a little tomato cage around it and just mow around it. There you go. Yeah, that's great. Thank you. So that's beautiful. So that shows how the ripples continue to spread outwards, right? And this is how life is meant to continue to evolve on the planet. This is how we're meant to be nurtured in that way. And you know, the environment will recover very quickly. During the lockdowns of COVID here on Kauai, when people weren't allowed into the state of Hawaii from outside, our environment began to recover very, very quickly. So we went down, I remember one day we went down to this beach on the North Shore. And it's a beach that's very, very popular. It's near some fancy schmancy resorts and a whole bunch of condos. And it's a beautiful little beach. You have to walk down from a cliff, beautiful little white sand beach with a barrier reef, usually pretty good snorkeling out there. In recent years, so when I first moved here in the late 1990s, you could go down there and, you know, it would be pretty quiet, and then maybe some people would come down, and, you know, in the peak of the day, there'd be 10 or 15 people on the beach. It's a pretty small beach, so maybe 20 people at most. Sometimes some people would kayak around, or surfers would come down there, but it was a place where local people went. Well, recently, like before, you know, before COVID, we wouldn't go down there anymore because there'd be 80 or 100 people, visitors, all local people just stopped going down there because it was packed. You literally 2, 3, 5 feet away from someone you didn't know next to you on the beach, which is not how it is here. You go out to the beach and you have space. Okay, so there was no space at all, and it was very crowded, and of course lots of toxic sunscreens that and bug sprays, things that are not reef safe, killing the reef, harming the environment. So we went down there a couple of months, maybe 5, 6 months after the COVID lockdown started on Kauai, and the environment was already recovering. And you could see the reef coming back. You could see the beach cleansing itself. The sand was clean again. The birds that would always be high up on the cliff had come back down. We witnessed a little, well, Japanese white-eye, it's a little bird, songbird that's here on the island. A baby, a fledgling getting flying lessons from its mother and father, who would watch it. And we sat there and we could observe the bird for, about an hour, because there was getting his flying lessons. There was nobody around. And you could see what this would be if we had, another year or 2 years or 3 years of bringing that balance back. And so I sincerely believe that there's a way, if we shift human consciousness, where we can have both. We don't have to be under lockdown to be able to restore the environment. We can actually bring people into the system to help encourage the wildlife, to help encourage nature. But it requires that shift in consciousness. It requires that shift of consciousness where when we see a place, the first thing we think of is, oh, how can I caretake this place? How can I bring wildlife into this place? How can I bring this place into balance? As opposed to whatever other thoughts might be out there. So, yeah, thank you. Does anybody else have anything they want to share? Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and do our journey now. And Jim, you watched the video, so you're clear on journeying to the lower world.
I did.
Yeah.
Thank
Okay.
you. Really
Great.
helpful.
Great, and you were able to meet your power animal, I'm assuming.
Yep.
Yeah, okay, perfect. And so everybody else, hi Sherry, you're right on time. Do you want to just
hi? Sorry, I
just
had
say hi to
some
everybody?
business stuff. Hi, everybody.
Tell us who you are.
Gary. I'm in Miami, Florida, and it's a lovely day.
Thanks for joining us,
I'm
Sherry.
glad to be here. Yeah, sorry. Took
No,
me
you're perfect timing.
afterwards.
We're just about to start the journey, so you're on the
Okay,
exact
sounds good.
perfect time. And
Turning
you've been
the volume
listening.
up.
You've been listening, I guess. So yeah, a little
Haven't
bit.
I was in session with a client, so I
Oh,
had to put you guys in another room.
got it. Okay, no worries.
But I wanted to join in and do that in a
Thanks.
bit.
Yeah, thanks for letting me know. So the journey today is going to be about our human impact on wildlife, and to how do we bring humans into the system in a way that caretakes and nurtures wildlife, so that when we look at a place, we go, oh, how can I bring this system into balance? What can I do to help encourage the wildlife? What can I give back in that way? So that's our journey. Yeah. Okay. So thanks. We're going to start, and just want to make sure everybody is muted so we don't get any feedback.
Hey, just one question. The intention would be, sorry, I'm breaking up. The intention is, what is the intention of the journey exactly? I think I didn't really.
Yeah, you want me to say it again?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's about how can we model positive impact on wildlife as humans.
Okay, generally.
So
Okay.
remember how I was sharing about bringing people into a system and creating the taro loi, and it brings the water birds. So how can I model, what actions can I take that will help integrate our human presence on the planet with nurturing of wildlife, rather than, oh, we're humans, we're wrecking everything around us. So we're living in harmony, we're living together. Yeah?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thanks, Karina. Okay, so we're going to journey. I'm going to step off the camera and drum, and then you'll hear the callback, and then once we take a few moments to journal, we'll share with everybody. Okay. Okay, welcome back everybody from our journey. Hi Michael, we were just talking about you.
Yeah, that's funny. I hear it.
You could hear it and you jumped in. I was just asking Alicia how you're doing.
I figured I'd answer that myself. Fantastic. Very blessed. Thanks, everybody. That's great.
Thank you for tuning in. Sorry you missed the journey part, but you'll get to hear what we are sharing and catch it on the video.
Yeah, so I guess it's how to help the wildlife in effect. I'm trying to catch up here, so great.
Yeah, well, what we were talking about earlier is how we impact wildlife as humans in the way we live, and how many traditionally cultures would live in a way in harmony with the wildlife, so we'd make space for the wildlife in what we do. So bringing the people into the system in a way that nurtures the wildlife, and so that's basically what we were journeying on. So you can do the journey on your own time, and it's really great to have you on the call, and feel free to share anything that comes to your mind and heart. Yeah. Thanks, Michael. Who'd like to share first about their journey? Go ahead, Christiane.
So I didn't get much instruction because mine turned into more just me asking for help, just to put me in a place where I can be more supported to be myself, because this is something that I'm really good at. I always have been. It's something I've always done. I've always really just been a model for trying to be organic in the web of life, always. And it's just like, I'm just not in the right place. So anyway, the journey was, I got all these great flashes of all these adorable kids that I've had, like these one-offs who've been wonderful and just so amazing. And like one time I took my class to this nature thing, and it was like this bird. It was all these games and whatever. And this one little boy in the class who was an incredible little kid, and he was playing the games, after the games were over, and then the lady running the show was like, oh, no, we're not doing that, was kind of disciplining him. And he's like, I was just practicing the bird songs. Like, he was so upset, and he goes, Miss, I can't believe. I go, I know. I go, you're right. You're doing everything right. Don't worry about her. She doesn't get it. And he's like, but why would she think I was misbehaving or I was doing the wrong thing? I'm like, because she doesn't get it. I'm like, you're doing the right thing. Don't worry about it. And he's like, oh, okay. And then the separate section, we had to go through these really tall horsetails. And it was really cool. It was like, shh, as you walk through them. And then the lady told everyone, you got to be quiet because there's, we have to listen. And then who ends up talking are all the parent volunteers on this trip, right? And then this kid comes to me and he goes, Miss, I wanted them to be quiet. I'm like, yeah, me too. Me too.
Yeah.
So I was getting all these little cute memories of kids like that. And I was just asking to be put in a place where I could just do me and it just would be better. So mine was kind of more selfish in that sense, because I was just like, this is what I need, guys. Like, I wasn't really getting other instructions. It was just more kind of me praying about it, I guess.
Thanks, Chris. Thank you, Christiane. Well, I don't know if it was being selfish, because I think that you actually need to be in a place where you can hold that space for others. So, if the long-term intent is make me stronger so I can help others, that's not selfish. That's actually practical.
Yeah.
That's stepping away from martyrdom. So it's a good thing. And I just wanted to comment on that, because what you shared earlier about the squirrel and the little girl at the beginning. And what you're sharing now in your journey about that you had the flashes of the other kids is actually very similar to my journey. I was going to wait until the end to share my journey, but I'm feeling to share it now. So I'm going to, because I also got a lot of little snippets. And whenever I get little snippets like that, I'll ask, well, why are you showing me snippets as opposed to a story? Right? Why am I getting snippets? And then they invariably say, well, duh, Scott, you're supposed to put all the snippets together and figure out the story. That's what they tell me. My power animals are quite snarky like that. And so that's exactly what happened. And I began to be shown snippets of basically being in nature in present time, as in being present and timeless in nature. And then I was shown how we wander around, and the other morning I was watching two birds build a nest in a hollow tree, and a lot of time passed, and I'm like, oh, I gotta go. I got an appointment, right? Okay, so, and then I was taken to the flash of, and I got the insight of like, oh, well, we just need to be present with our day to day. And if we're present with wildlife, and we'll do the right thing. This is what is essentially holding, allowing me to do that. If I walk around my yard and I'll like, oh, let me do this so a chicken can have a nest there or something like that, right? But it's when I'm not present and I need to get things done. And then they showed a picture of me, driving my daughter to the school bus a morning when I'm late, and how I'm not actually present in that moment with the needs of my surroundings, with the needs of the web of life. I'm just going, I got to get her to the bus. I got to get it done. And then I was shown other mornings when we're spacious, and we'll be like, oh, look at this, look at that rainbow. Oh, look at those lizards on the rock over there. Look at the anoles. Look at the geckos. Look at that, right? And so it's a lot of it I was shown is that finally, as I got to piece all these things together, a little snippet of like what you were shown and all those snippets, what I was being shown was it's about being present in present time, and how time is not linear. And what they showed me was that our modern life, a lot of the destruction in, like roadkill and habitat is because we have these linear roads that rush straight through. And we're rushing from A to B, A to B. Whereas if we're taking a more circuitous path and we're present with what is, then we're present with what is, and we might not get there exactly at the time that we thought we would, but we're being more mindful of the relations that we share our habitat with. And so what I was shown, it was very confronting actually for me personally, was that the fact that we live under a clock time. We all do, and it's necessary, otherwise we wouldn't be meeting here on Zoom and able to do this. But traditionally, people didn't live under clock time. We lived in harmony with the cycles of nature. And the cycles of nature do not work on clock time. They work when they're ready to work. It's not like the robin is going, oh, well, it's, April 1st. It's time for me to make my migration now. It's noon. Let's go. Come on, guys. No, they're waiting for the signs and the cycles of the weather. It's not like, oh, it's time to lay an egg. 9 a.m., that's my egg laying time. Right? If it's raining, they might not lay an egg that day, right? Things shift according to the environment, in right relationship to the environment around us. And so I was shown that this is, a societal issue. And of course, we're not going to just step out of clock time and never have clocks again. That's not realistic. But how do we manage this? How do we create a presence that all of us can, so we have the opportunity to be present? And it was then tied back to this idea of scarcity and abundance and the different mythologies, right? If we have a mythology that we were outcast from the garden and we're always in a place of scarcity, that affects how we approach the world, versus if we have a mythology that we're being provided for day by day, and we're dreaming the world into being as we take every step, or we're singing the world into being as we walk our song lines along the path of life. Those are such radically different ways of viewing the world. And so I was shown all those things, and I was shown that to share this as a agreement that everybody can adopt if they want to for themselves. Everything I need is provided by Mother Earth. All I need to do is be present and live in right alignment. Okay? And this is just, it says it all. Can't really say anything more than that, because that's the journey work talking, not Scott talking. That's coming from the spirit world. And so I just will leave that, and I'll share that as it is, and allow that to sit in the space. Yeah, thank you. And who'd like to share next? Lauren and then Alicia.
Okay. I'm just moving to the other room.
I figured I'd catch you in the timing when you can talk.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. It's interesting because mine was also about presence and right relationship, and I got this really clear message that was, don't be afraid of death, because you miss out on living. And I just saw all these snippets as well, and one of them was just Ocean. She was chasing this white butterfly and she was trying to catch it with her hands, and it was really clear that my role at the moment is to impart as much wisdom and knowledge onto her in terms of having a connection with Earth and our home and nature, and how we relate to it, and how we experience being in the present. And it's my dream. We're moving this weekend. It's my dream to set up this beautiful garden and to have flowers, and we can really be in our bush and create those moments for ourselves. And it feels like it's been a long time coming, so I'm really excited. And it was clear from my journey that this is what this new wave of my life is about. And I just saw images of me lying on the earth, and the message was, open my pores and my cells and start to really allow Mother Earth in. There's been some kind of I don't know, but there's been some kind of resistance to having that connection. So just allow that connection to get deeper and just keep nurturing that connection. And with that, then I open up to more, to being connected to, the cycles of life and right relationship. What else did I see? And then the other strong message that came through was just start to be really aware of the products and the purchases I'm making. Are they supporting the planet? Are they supporting the creatures? Are they supporting nature? And I kind of realized that I'd let that slip a little bit lately. So that was a good reminder as well. Yeah. So yeah, presence and being in the bush is what I got, and just imparting that right relationship and connection with Ocean.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thanks. And imparting that to our children is the biggest gift we can give, not only to them, but to future generations. Because if she's getting that gift at age 3, it becomes her first language of relating to the world around her. It becomes her default way of relating to the world around her. And that has a lot of vibrations, positive vibrations into the future. That brings a lot of positive vibrations into the future. And I've seen that play out with my daughter, who's now 14, almost 15. We've spent a lot of time in the backcountry together. 10-day, 14-day camping trips, paddling trips, backpacking trips, not with a car, And especially the first time that she did an extended trip with me, she was 3, and we spent 9 days. And I could see her brain development change. No electronics, no electricity, living just, of course we had a tent and we had food, and she was a 3-year-old. She took her naps. We didn't go, super deep away from campsites. We were near a campsite. We spent a few days away, 4 days in more of a backcountry setting. But it was near a little pond a little pool and river she could swim. So it was age-appropriate setting, but you could see I could see her brain change. I could see her brain development change. Instead of all the straight lines that we have around us. Time isn't linear. The web of life isn't linear. It's a magical dance of all these different patterns and circles and shapes. And out in nature, for 9 days, she didn't see many straight lines. There were a lot of curved lines, a lot of branches intertwining, rivers moving. And you could, I don't know if I can define it or if I could exactly articulate the way it shifted her brain development, but it did, and it was the right time in her development to take her off one path and bump her onto another path. And so we've been doing that, almost every year. We spend at least a week, sometimes two, sometimes we spend even a month of over 2 or 3 trips in the backcountry together. And 30 days, that's a great amount of time, for a year. And every time she resets, she's just so at home in that environment. It's just second nature. It is really actually, she goes and she does great in school and interfacing with the day by day out in our regular material world and day-to-day ordinary reality life. But it's more like she's from there, coming into that day-to-day life, but her true home is actually in the nature places. And that's never going to change now because it's so deeply imprinted. So spending that time with your daughter in a garden, and it doesn't have to be a grand, huge garden. It can be small, right? It can be her size. And then as she grows, it can continue. So it's not like you have to make this giant garden for her to play with. She can be content in a, I don't know, 4 square meter patch or something for quite a while. There's a lot to see in 4 square meters. And one of a really beautiful exercise to do with a young child is if you give them a square of earth to play with. So, 20 centimeters by 20 centimeters, something like that, 30 by 30 centimeters square, and or smaller, and you have them, and you cut out 1 inch deep, a couple of centimeters deep, right? And then just have them observe what bugs are crawling in there. Or even if you don't cut it out, just observe a very small square in front of them. What's moving through the ground? And if you dig deep, what's underneath there? And it's just an exploration, and it can take an hour to just dig through that one little square of earth in front of them, to see what's there, how are the roots, what about the mycelium, what's these little particles, what's that? And just allow their curiosity to open in that way. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you. Sherry, did you want to comment on what Lauren had to say? Or you want to share your journey? Yeah, okay. Let Alicia go and then we'll get to you.
It seems like there's quite a theme here. I'm going to piggyback both Lauren, Scott, and Christian. It was, for me, it kind of came forward like about being present. And I've been working on that and creating my own little ecosystem back here. And what I realized that I do now with others, and it's like an education, and it's to continue to do that, and is to show people aren't aware of what's around them, like you're saying. For example, my adult daughter saw a black racer. We have these black snakes. They're very long, 3-4 feet long, in our yard out the window. And she was like, go out and get a shovel and kill it. And I was like, oh, so I observed it. And I'm like, well, let's watch it. So we were watching, and then we realized there were 2, and then there was 3. There was actually 4 altogether, and they were coming from the pond through our side yard, and they ended up in the woods. But they were mating. It's mating season here for snakes. So I had her kind of observe them, and I'm like, you're inside, you're safe. They're not coming at us through the window, So we kind of observed them. And it was interesting because once she calmed down and didn't want it killed, she was like, oh, well, what do you know about them? I'm like, they're not usually in groups ever, except for during mating season. So I ended up teaching her some stuff about the snakes so she'd be less scared, although we were inside. I don't know if she would have gone outside. But I did end up going outside because I wanted to see if they did go into the woods, which they did eventually. And then this last week, I was in New York with my 3-year-old granddaughter, and she saw a mouse in my son's barn, and she's like, kill it. And I was like, no, no, watch what it's doing. It was cleaning its face. So I had her just stand still and watch its actions. And then we named it. I was like, that's little Minnie Mouse. And so we kind of named it. And then she's like, oh, she's my friend. I'm like, sure. This is her job in the barn. He doesn't have a cat. He only has a dog. So Minnie Mouse is probably going to stay there. And it just, my journey was just about like seeing things and sharing when I see it and there's other people there, sharing it with them so they can see a different side of, no, these things aren't necessarily in your way. They're a gift, and see the gift. So that, it kind of goes with being present in the moment, seeing it, observing it, sharing it with somebody else, and letting them see the gift of it instead of whatever they think is wrong with it.
Wow, that's really beautiful. That's really profound and really beautiful, Alicia. And that's such an important gift to give to others and to contribute back into the web of life. Because it really is about people have this disconnection, right? And that was the other big thing. I don't remember if I shared that in my journey. It's when we're disconnected, we fail to consider what our impact is on the web of life, what our impact is on wildlife and animals. And so you did a great job of getting her to slow down, both your daughter and your granddaughter, and to reconnect and see, oh yes, that's a mouse. It's not harmful. It has a place in the world. It has a place in the world. It's part of the web of life. Those are snakes. They have a place in the world. They're there. I live with them. I don't need to isolate myself, right? That's what happens. We isolate ourselves from the web of life. We disconnect from the web of life. And it's when we're disconnected and isolated is when those problems happen. And a lot of times that happens because of our rush in time, and other times it just happens because that's how we've been trained. As it's not like your 3-year-old granddaughter was in a rush. But you could see how you had to get her to slow down and be present in order to reconnect, right? So it's like when you're rushing, and your daughter as well, just calm down, take a breath, be here. Are you under threat right now? No, you're not. Why don't you just watch the thing? Why do you have to move it or do something to it? Can't you just observe it and learn from it? And that is really where all our wisdom has always come from, is from observing the web of life, right? That's where all wisdom has come from. So much has come from there. So thanks, Alicia,
Thank
for
you.
sharing that. And one thing along those lines as well is that during our retreat last week and the week before, some people had requested that I lead a nature day with them. And so we did. We took most of the day over the weekend, one of the days, and we went out to this area. And we had a wonderful, amazing time. We were able to observe thanks, Lauren, for joining us by ocean. We were able to observe a mama monk seal with a baby nursing, and a lot of native seabirds, including some native seabirds that were nesting. And we got to their nesting area, and there was about 60 or 80 of them circling around their nesting area. And we're a small group. There's 6 of us. And as we approached that area, oh my God, you should have, and these are very intense protective birds. They're red-tailed tropic birds that were in that area. And so as we're getting closer to their area, their alarm calls are just going off. I mean, and they're very, like, if you see a red-tailed tropic bird on the ground up close, they will stare at you like, they're not that big, but they look like they're going to eat you. And their beaks are very sharp because they're fishing birds, right? And they're long, pointy, sharp beaks. So you don't get close to them at all, especially when they're nesting. But in general, you want to give them their space in a respectful way. So we're in their nesting area, and I'm with everybody, and I go, okay, you guys, we just got to everybody sit down. And everyone's like, what? And I'm like, just sit down. And I'm like, sit down, lay down, just be here in this area, look at the birds around you. If you see some on the ground, you can look at them. If you see some in the sky, look at them. But just be here and make yourself still. And so be in the, and they were feeling the energy because it was intense. You have, 60, 80 birds intensely alarm calling around you, and they're not particularly small birds either. Just sit with it, just be here, just observe it, just like you were saying, Alicia, look at the mouse, right? And after about 15 or 20 minutes, everybody calmed down. And as soon as everybody calmed down, the energy shifted in the space and the birds stopped alarm calling. And all of a sudden the birds were like, it's okay for you guys to be here. And they didn't mind. And we were able to then move a little closer to the area where they were nesting, still keeping a respectful distance. But just to sit with them, and they were just up in a, public area near a beach, right? They weren't in a protected area or anything. They were just out there. And they were, the energy shifted so much, but it was because we shifted our energy and we got ourselves quiet. And as soon as everybody got to quiet down, the alarm stopped, and we were just part of the environment. We could have been a rock for all they cared at that point. They had assessed, you're not a threat. You're observing, you're not a threat. They had been able to, it took them a while to process that, but then once they did, we were connected in that way. So that's very much aligned with what you're sharing there as well, about teaching that to your granddaughter, teaching that to your daughter. So really beautiful. Thank you. Sherry.
Okay, segue into consciousness affecting the web of life. Water, which has consciousness. I was taken to that area and was focused on the spinning fish that's going on in South Florida area. Fish are spinning until they die. Spinning, spinning, spinning. It's become a really big problem in the Keys, in particular, and it's infested on up the coast. So I was asking, well, what is causing all that? What can correct it? And there were several little responses. One is humans connecting with nature, similar to if we look at gymnasts and how they move around like the wind. There's a force and so forth. And we can take our consciousness and bring that into the water. And the water can take its consciousness and bring it into the fish. And I'm like, well, I asked, well, how can the fish correct what's going on? And I was told that the fish have to be conscious. And I'm like, oh, well, how is that going to work? And the consciousness would come from the water. But then there's something going on in the water that is not what it's supposed to be. Let's put it that way. It's dark and it's changing the consciousness of the water. So we as humans are to correct that. And I asked help from the spirits. They came forward. And since water is the most predominant molecule in the universe, there was, I saw connection lights coming in and infusing this magical energy into the oceans from like all of the molecules everywhere in the universe. So it comes from above as well. So our consciousness creates what happens in nature, and our consciousness can change things that don't belong there, that are not natural.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And so you felt like it helped to heal that or rebalance what was happening in the water there. I hadn't heard about this, what you were sharing about the fish spinning.
Yeah, it's been on the major news as well. It's a real thing. It's a real problem. Real problem. And there are swordfish that are bringing themselves to shore. It's very bad.
So these are the big fish that are coming. This is
These
happening.
are big fish as well, but it's not like
all
these
of them, all sizes. Yeah.
Yes, all sizes, small, big, yeah.
And you felt that after your journey that the darkness in the water was able to transmute?
Let's just say it's a big transformational shift, and at the very, very end, I was like, come on guys, we gotta hurry up, we're almost done. So I really felt that the the magicalness of surrounding, or in the magicalness of the energy did change it. Now, whether or not that's permanent, I don't want to say yes or no on that one.
But you felt
I
that
can
it did
say
shift within your journey. You did see that.
I definitely did see it shift. It took a little while because there was a thickness first, a darkness thickness, and there was not much movement. And then I saw the magical swirls and surreal kind of colors and so forth emerge. When I connected the molecules in the universe, or when that was shown to me, connecting the molecules in the universe with the I guess you could call it right relationship with whatever is wrong within our waters that's causing this to the fish. So I think the idea is to bring from resources that are not being affected by whatever's happening around the planet.
And did you have any sense of the origin of the disturbance?
Yeah, I asked about that, and that one was tough to get to, and I couldn't figure it out.
So
It wasn't
meant to be shown yet.
Exactly. I could make something up and say,
No, it just wasn't.
metals.
No, it wasn't meant to be shown at this time. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's something. It is whatever it is, and it is a problem.
Thank you.
Or hopefully it used to be a problem.
Thanks for sharing that, Sherry. I wasn't even aware of the imbalance over there. And I will say there have been many studies done around human consciousness shifting the physical properties of water. So probably the most famous is Masaru Emoto in Japan, with the shifting of the water molecules with people chanting. But it's also been done with shamanic journey work and transmutation of pollution. That's been one of my, you know, we did the merging with water journey, right? And then I've been part of a group where we remotely had water that was highly acidic in a room with a scientist in a different location. And then there was a group of us in our journey who were transmuting that to bring it back to pH neutral. And it went from like a 9.5 to 7.8 or something like that. So it didn't quite get to 7.0, but it definitely took a lot of the acidity out of that water. So, oh no, maybe it was the other way, not 9.
It went up.
It went the way it was supposed to go. It wasn't it wasn't too alkaline. I'm sorry, I'm not a scientist. It moved, but it didn't move. It moved like 60% of the way back.
Okay.
So yeah, I realized I just got the numbers wrong. 5 points. Whatever. You know what I meant. I'm not the scientist here. But it has been done. You know, and it is a part, and especially working in a group, that's also an important thing. Sometimes we've done these journeys where we've focused on one particular location as a group to bring healing to that particular location where there's an imbalance.
Well, it'd be wonderful to do something like that with the waters in the oceans. I'm sure it's not just here, and there's something going on in there. So I'm all for it. I certainly, that's going to be the focus of my journey, at least tonight for sure. So if anybody wants to join me.
Thank you, Sherry. Thanks for sharing that. And thanks again for bringing that to my awareness. We can talk more about it.
Yeah, and I guess it doesn't matter when anybody does the journey, since time doesn't really exist. It's all going to collapse into the same moment right now anyway.
Right, and it can be waves of healing. It doesn't have to be simultaneous. So
exactly.
That's another topic. We'll go to that one later.
All right, thank you so much.
Thanks, Sherry. Would anybody else like to share about their journey? Lindsay?
Hey everyone. So my journey was very much about connection as well. And when I first went down to lower world, I went very deep to lower world. And I normally when I go deep, it means I'm going like back in time or whatever time is. And I met with one of my wise benevolent ancestors, and he told me like how it used to be, like very much what you were saying about we used to connect with the land. We used to listen. We used to sit and listen to the land and feel its vibrations and communicate with the land. And it used to be very much a symbiotic relationship rather than just this take, how it is now. I then got taken to Lake Wellup, which is very close to my house, and we had a fire about a few months ago there, and the fireys over here took all the water out of the lake to put the fire out, and now the lake's completely dry, and we've completely destroyed this habitat here. And I remember going and walking around there and just feeling all this like animosity sort of thing, like all the disruption that it had caused to the wildlife. And I just imagined, like, I just saw this big dump of white light coming down into the lake, and this like healing white light. And I was just reminded of that experience, and also of a time when, like, I have some trees in pots in my front garden, and I have this pomegranate tree who its roots are going down into the hole in the pot, and so the water's not draining out of it properly. And I put this like healing white light coming down into this tree because it was almost dying, and the next over the next few days, like all these pomegranates started coming up, and it was just this reminder that we are this bridge between the spirit world, and we can heal the world, and we can bring this healing white light down and have a real impact. And it's and our impact may seem really small, but I also got reminded of this this story that my friend posted on Facebook recently about this hummingbird in a forest that was on fire, and it kept like going back to the forest with this tiny beak full of water to try and put out this fire. And this jaguar was asking it, "Why are you bothering doing this?" Basically, he said, and the hummingbird said, "This is my home. This is where I live. I'll do anything to try and save it." And all these animals were listening. They're like, "Oh my gosh, let's try and save the forest." And they all started bringing water and put out this fire. And it just shows like every tiny little thing that we do makes a difference. And yeah, so it was very much about connection and us being this bridge, and all these tiny little things making a big difference. And then I got taken to another time. So I've been shown previously in a journey that I also live next to this golf course, and it's a closed-in golf course, and it's quite famous because there are these kangaroos that live within this golf course, and they're all shut in. And I've been shown previously in a journey by, I think it's some guardian of the land or something like that, how awful it is that these kangaroos were shut in. It was quite traumatic for him, like whenever it happened, that these animals should roam the land free, like they journey big distances, and they shouldn't be shut into this land. And I was doing a journey about something completely different, and at the time I was like, "Why are you showing me this?" And it's all come back today. But it was almost like this guy couldn't get over it, and I was trying to actually do some kind of like soul retrieval with him and remove this intrusion for him, but he didn't want it. Like he was like, didn't want to get over it. He's like, it was just so traumatic for him. But and then my journey kind of finished as you brought us back. But yeah, it was actually quite a lot in my journey today.
Yeah, thanks, Lindsay, for sharing that. And yeah, I would imagine he wouldn't want any kind of healing on that, because he's the guardian of the land. He wants the land to be healed, right?
Yeah,
So
right.
I'm imagining that there isn't, when it's out of right relationship, it's just out of right relationship. And
Yeah.
what he really wants is to change to, a hole in the fence, basically.
Yeah, and at the time I was like, what can I do to help? Like in my previous journey, and it was like, I can't start letting these kangaroos out. Like I'll get
Right.
arrested or something.
Right.
And
It's not, what can you do to help short of terrorism? That you're not
yeah,
going to engage in.
yeah, and also like you just it's almost like there's been that many generations of kangaroos now, like you almost couldn't let them free, like they would just die, they'd get run over and things like that, because it's right in the middle of a kind of suburban place. So I was kind of trying to help him come to terms with it, but he just wasn't having any of it. Like he just didn't want to get over it. Like he's like, it's not right.
Right.
Yeah,
Or
it was a
maybe
bit
there is
sad.
an answer in shifting the consciousness of the people who are in charge of
Mm,
the golf course, right?
yeah.
Because that's really where it is. It's not, I was joking when I was saying, what can you do short of terrorism? We're not advocating eco-terrorism. But it puts us in this position where this is what we know needs to shift. And if the laws are a certain way and people have it a certain way, obviously we're not gonna break the law to do something that we feel should be done. We have to have
Mm,
conversations with people. And so we
mhm,
have to have those conversations, and those conversations are the conversations that help shift people's consciousness. Right now,
mm,
they may or may not want to engage in those conversations, but there are ways in which we can bring the awareness forward, whether it's to them directly or to other people. And as the conversation begins to evolve over time, and consciousness begins to evolve over time, maybe somebody else has the idea of how it can work, where those kangaroos can roam more freely and not get run over because they're, 8 generations old and have never seen a car before, right?
mm,
Maybe
mhm,
there is something, but we haven't thought of it yet, or we haven't even been shown that yet. Because the first thing that happens is there has to be a general consensus in consciousness that this is an objective that's shared, not just something that we're tapping into that is right from the spirit of the land, but we're shifting the human consciousness in a way where everyone a shared has a shared objective in that way, and there's buy-in from all levels.
mm. It certainly made me start thinking about it again. Like, yeah, and that's a very good point. Like, I can't go and break into the fence, but I can start having conversations with people or writing to someone or something.
Right. And it's a community, right? So that if many people start having that conversation and many people begin to shift their consciousness and agree on that, then more conversations can happen and solutions can be found. And it might not be the solution that we envision right now, right? It might not be
Mm,
as simple as just taking the fence down. There might be some other layers, and who knows where that goes. So, yeah, it's really, yeah, thanks for sharing that.
you're welcome.
Nice to see you.
Yeah, you too. It's been too long.
Yeah. Okay, who else would like to share? Jim, go ahead.
I can talk about kangaroos all day long. So in the same spirit, I write down the middle on awareness and being present and expansion and sharing and education. And so right away, my spirit animal took me by the shoulders and carried me to 3 places. The first place, which is really interesting, I live it's very wild around here, and so this topic is appropriate for me. So I live in Sacramento, which is the capital of California, but I live right down the street is the American River, and the American River runs from the Sierras to San Francisco. So it's about 60 miles, and it's a wild parkway. So it goes all the way from the Sierra Mountain Range to the bay. So every kind of animal you can imagine comes down that parkway. It's about a quarter mile long, 60 miles wide. So when I ride my bike in the morning, the other day, the first place it took me was right when I got onto the river road. There's a coyote with its pups in tall grass playing. And so my spirit animal carried me above it, but pointed out that there was eggs from quail right next to where the pups were playing, but independent, and then took me to a bird nest up in the oak tree there where there's bluebird eggs. So it was eggs, pup, but I didn't see the quail eggs when I was there watching the coyote, but it was just pointing out that look all that's happening in this one little tiny area. Then it took me to the family farm in Minnesota where I spent a bunch of my youth, to the junkyard, to the junk pile in the farm. And we had no trash on the farm. and they still have no trash. So think about that. It took me to a place where you don't have any trash. You never throw anything away. It doesn't go anywhere. If it could not be used, like a piece of metal or something that was awkward size, it would go in the heap. And eventually over, 50 years, 75 years, you'd get somewhat of a little pile, but not very big. And it was just that kind of stuff. But you didn't take it to the trash man. It didn't go in a can. It didn't go out to the curb ever in your whole life. Then on the third, it took me to my street, and there's a cemetery at the end of my street where wild turkeys are and geese. And so all the webcams, the doorbell cameras on the houses have been picking all along my street right here. A mountain lion has been walking down about 5 a.m. right down the middle of the street. And they think that he goes to the cemetery to eat a turkey every morning, and then goes back to the river. But it's so the neighbors all they're putting no mountain lion signs on their lawns, and they're keeping their cats, because they'll eat the cats too. So they're all up in arms that their cats are in danger and whatnot. So there's a lot of hoopla about the wrong thing, sort of, going on. So then at that point, you called us back. So those are the three pictures, the three scenarios that I was shown. And I could go on and on and on and write about them and journal about them, about the implications, but the awareness of the web of life with the eggs and the coyotes, and the no junk, don't throw things away, and leave the mountain lion alone to eat the turkeys. Keep your cats inside in the morning. Not hard, but aware and conscious.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Jim. And there are less mountain lions than there are house cats. So
yeah,
in the grand scheme of things, let's protect the mountain lion.
Yep.
You can protect your house cats too. I have cats. I love my cats.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want them to be eaten by a
Just
mountain
don't
lion.
put them out at 5 a.m. in the morning if you know that's when he's coming.
Right. Exactly. Let them be indoors for a little
Right.
while. It's it's a domestic cat, and there's a mountain lion out there, and
Right.
that's it. And yeah, that's kind of cool that the mountain lion is making its morning run for turkey.
They're smart.
Of course they are. And there's not a lot of places where there's places to collect food, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, they're just magnificent animals. So recently, too, another one, a male, got cornered not just a couple blocks from my house, and the TV cameras were there, and he was in a backyard, and they had him kind of cornered in the backyard, and they were trying to throw a net over him, and there was a 9-foot fence in the backyard, so they thought he was, they had him. And that they had the net and they had the cameras, and that guy just went boop right over that 9-foot fence effortlessly.
Yeah.
And disappeared for another couple of days.
Yeah, just effortless. Absolutely.
Just went boop. He didn't even, it wasn't even running. He just from a stand.
Right. Just hopped over it. Yeah, I've seen in a distance, I've seen a mountain lion jump down. It must have been a good 15 feet, just effortless completely.
Yep.
And they're amazing. Thank you, Lindsay, for joining us. Yeah, so those are nice journeys. I think the overwhelming image I got when you were sharing your first journey was about the beginning of a cycle.
Yeah, right.
Right, birth and the beginning of the cycle.
Right.
And then, no trash, right? So at the end of the cycle, there's reuse.
Yeah, right. Right. And the eggs and the coyote was interesting, because I couldn't, at first I was wondering why, but the message was to pay as much attention to the eggs as to the coyote with the pups. So
yeah.
So that was because the coyote with pups, I mean, holy cow, you can sit there and watch them all day long, but you ignore the eggs in the nest.
Right. Yeah. So the beginning, the life is there, and there's more there than that we're aware of.
Right.
And how does that, I would imagine that in your pile in Minnesota, it's also a pile of shelter for little
Right.
ground dwelling animals and things like that as well.
Very much so.
Where, and now you're talking about, oh, everybody's really up in arms that there's a danger and a mountain. There's a lot of fear around, really contrasting that lifestyle on the farm with the suburban lifestyle.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you for sharing that. Thanks. Karina, do you want to share with us?
Yeah, it's gonna be very short. Oh, here's the light. Okay, so it was a very short journey. I saw immediately like seeds and trees, and I was thinking because I went to a place with a friend and did one of your journeys there. I think about what has to be done for this place to be in right relationship or something about that, and I was shown planting more trees. So we did one. We planted one tree, and then I realized that the problem is that you have to go and water the tree then every week or so in the beginning, probably. So in the journey, I was shown after that seeds and trees, I was shown like these canals that they have water and then they, go out. And I think that what they usually did when they had, growing crops, whatever, they had to think about how to water everything and they had their own mechanisms probably. So I don't know what that second image was, but I think it was around this topic that came up that, okay, you can plant trees as you want, that's all nice, but then you have to think on how do you water them? If it's 100 trees, you don't go with 100 liter water bottles down there. So that was maybe related, and that's it. And later, I think what I still got is that on this specific place, I always wondered that there were not so many birds. I would have imagined there could have been more birds because it's a protected space. And then maybe that was my thought also because you talked about it, but it was also maybe coming that if there are more trees, then there would be more birds. So yeah, that was actually from the journey work, and I was relating it a lot to this one place where I had been. Actually, I started selecting tree seeds and I start planting them now, and then so that's all fun. I like it.
Thanks, Karina. So part of planting is planting native trees that will do well in that environment.
Yeah, I
that
asked
don't-
friends
and-
exactly. I always ask now friends before I plant. Yeah.
Yeah. And also with the cycles, right? We plant in the cycle. So there's some like I don't know about the Canary Islands, but here we have rainy cycles and drier cycles. And so when I know that there's a big front coming in and it's going to rain for 4 or 5 days, I'll put something in the ground right before that. Because the ground's going to get a really good drenching. It's really going to help it. If I see that there's, going to be hot and sunny for weeks, I might not plant unless it's something like an aloe or a papaya or a pineapple that really likes hot, sunny, dry conditions. Okay, then I'm like, yeah, I'll do that and I'll hand water it because I know that it actually really likes that dry weather. So that's part of it. But I think what you saw about the irrigation with, the canals and the irrigation canals is metaphorical also in the sense of the continuing effort. It's not just, okay, I plant a tree and I walk away and I've done my thing. It's an ongoing day in, day out process about, it's not just, oh yeah, I understand mentally that it's important for me to be aware of the web of life, and I do, and now I go back to everything else and I come back to it once a week. No, it's an ongoing thing. It has to have we have to water it consistently. We have to consistently water these seeds of being in right relationship, of being a caretaker of the web of life. So that's what I hear when I listen to you share your journey as well.
Okay, got it. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you for being here today. I look forward to seeing everybody online again or here on Kauai in the fall. And thanks again. Really appreciate everybody for taking the time out today.